Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round. What's the show called?
It's called the Buy Round, this show.
It's called the Buy Round.
Jam and Cheese normally you get on a Tuesday, but Brad and Smith, unfortunately, is going to be on Wednesday's show, which comes out Thursday.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It could be fortunate for those people that listen on a Wednesday.
Yeah, they get their dinner 2 days early, if you will.
What?
You know, you get
so you're saying you get your dinner today?
Yeah.
Me and you.
Yeah. If you prefer the Thursday episode, well, hey, it's like Christmas has come early.
Yeah.
Is what I should have said.
Interesting. You're a bit rattled, aren't you, Charlie?
No, I'm not rattled.
You are rattled.
I'm not rattled at all, actually.
Look, we all know what it's like to have a significant decade birthday. You're 30 officially today. You've come in on your birthday. That is the type of standards. Well, you know what? We're giving that a round of applause. It just goes how far society has slipped. That like people at major organisations get their birthday off. At the Buy Round, we are a more traditional. You work if it's your birthday. Kids go to school on their birthday.
They do. Actually, I often was allowed my day off when I was a kid and didn't go to school on my birthday.
It's all starting to make sense. Look, a lot of organisations are a bit soft, shall we say. But here at the Buy Round, we are traditional values, Charlie.
Yeah,
and you work on your birthday and you might get a shout out, obviously. You don't have any cake in the workplace. We are only a team of three, so...
Yeah, and we're all here. It's nice for you to all show up for my birthday as well. Everyone made their way into the office, which is great. But yeah, Cheese will be on in a couple of days' time. And I've come in on my birthday, and I think we spoke a lot about my birthday in the last episode.
So how are the celebrations?
It was good. I had a good night on Saturday. I did find a pub in the end, the Bat and Ball. Great pub, actually. We had a little area there, pool table, some dart boards and stuff like that. But no, had a lot of fun. Bit sore yesterday. So just sort of...
Wounded soldier,
yeah. But no, feeling great, mate. Feeling great.
Good. I appreciate the invite. I was going to come, but with High Rocks on the horizon on Friday, I thought it would be better to have the weekend
Just
off.
look after yourself, yeah. Which is for the best.
It probably is. It does feel strange, though. Like paying to do and I know it's like everybody has to pay, but I used to be like, you get paid to play. I'm doing the High Rocks. There's no consequence for me. Like I'm only accountable to myself.
Yeah. I don't quite get the High Rocks thing very well. Like I understand a lot of the other things, but High Rocks just seems like you're picking the worst things to do at the gym and doing them. Like the ski erg and the rower and all that sort of stuff. Like the most boring part of the gym. The most boring part. You're doing it and that's the competition.
Well, it's a challenge. And it's a test.
Yeah. Are you with Jeremy Lattimore again this time around?
Solo this time. Yeah, doing it by myself, fully just me.
I didn't even know that was a thing to be able to do High Rocks solo.
Yeah, you can do it. So I think it started as a solo event. I'm going to be in the trenches on Friday. Not particularly looking forward to the burpee broad jumps. It's going to test the hip out.
Yeah.
So,
because people forget that you actually had one of those hip injuries that was like cooked.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you had a hip replacement?
No, a hip resurface.
Which is
basically the cartilage had disappeared, disintegrated, or been worn down in the hip. So they open you up, they shave the femur head, they put a ceramic cap on that, and they also shave the socket part of the hip.
But
and
isn't
put
that
some ceramic in there? But also, it's funny because when speaking to Nathan Hindmarsh and a few other people that have had it, the surgery since I had it and those people had it has changed, significantly changed in even where you cut open. Right. So I got absolutely butchered on mine and it was agony. So when people say, I got the hip resurface coming up, I'm like, like it knocked me.
Yeah.
Like beyond belief knocked me around. And now people are getting it and they're up and about the next day. I was in hospital for 4 days.
Yeah, wow.
I was in such a state. I left the hospital. I was like, I'm not ready to go.
Yeah, right.
But it was time to go. I was going to go to like a proper rehab facility for it because I just couldn't comprehend life. Like,
because Hindy went to work at Fox Sports the day after doing his surgery.
Yeah, I know he did. Like, which I couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
It's pretty much I remember, I think I'd been back home 3 days, and one of the days I was like, right, I want to do everything upstairs, and I'm going to get downstairs, and then that's it. I'm going to stay downstairs and then come up later on. I'd spent that much energy going downstairs. I had to go back up to go back to bed.
Wow.
I was rooted.
Fucking hell. Because it's was it one of those injuries where they go into like, oh, you might never be able to run again, all that sort of stuff?
Oh, yeah. The doc on the surgeon was like, you're not running anymore. You're 5K max.
Yeah, and you're out here doing marathons and high rocks, mate. That deserves a round of applause. Forget me rocking off my birthday. That deserves a round of applause. Speaking of like events, high rocks and all that sort of stuff, have you been keeping across the Runit stuff at all? Because that's our message of the week this week.
Oh, I was sent the clip of
Proctor.
Proctor, yeah.
Yeah, he's going against Jordan Simi, who was a fringe footy player, but then also he's like an influencer, social media style person, part of like YKTR when they were doing all that stuff. But Tim emailed us in and said, on the Runit stuff, I think it's an absolute disgrace that an event like this is able to be run. Jimmy Graham, what are your thoughts on the Runit challenge?
Well, just dissecting Simi versus Proctor. Proctor gets his technique all wrong because he's actually the defender. He's got to stop. He's at the advantage. He's got the advantage by not carrying the football. So, it's almost more of a collision than a tackle from Proctor. And obviously he pays the price for that. What are my thoughts on it, Charlie? Would I participate? Absolutely not. I don't feel there's a sum of money somebody could offer me to go up against anyone.
What about going up against me? What would be the sum of money?
Yeah, that requires more thought. I'll have to come back to you on that one.
So what you mean is you wouldn't go up against someone of a big size?
Well,
someone of an equal footing?
Probably not. No, I don't even think doing it against you, like, what's the point, really? But
there's a price.
Well, everyone has a price.
Yeah.
But look, I understand people don't enjoy it, but just because you don't enjoy it shouldn't stop anybody's freedom to participate if you know the risks. Like, it's idiotic, in my opinion. Well, sorry, no, I shouldn't say idiotic. It's got a lot of potential dangers, and that was evident on the Proctor versus Simi. I've seen George Burgess do it against an ex-rugby union player, which there was sort of much to do about nothing. But people know the risks, and if they want to do it and they get financially compensated or a bit of fame, then
I hate it.
Good luck to them.
I hate it, to be honest. Watching that video and Proctor gets knocked out and then his body's seizing up there, just awful to watch.
Yeah,
and I get
it is.
Some people find it entertaining, but there's got to be some sort of duty of care for humans. And what's it going to take? Someone could be doing that and hit their head and die.
Yeah, of course.
And then it's going to become an illegal thing to do, you would assume. I don't know why we're going to wait for that to happen and why we don't just make something like that not be able to be run now.
Well, that's a question for who would sanction such event? Like that's a question for those people who do or don't sanction these sorts of events. But
it's just so dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Like all it takes is, say, Proctor getting hit slightly different spot, maybe gets hit in the temple, and he could die.
Oh yeah, of course.
There on the spot.
I'm not arguing against you there, Charlie. But if people are, he's doing it of his own free will, and I'm assuming he's getting paid to do it. And if that's what he wants to do, and maybe it speaks to just retiring athletes, their need for that adrenaline, their need for cash, their need for easy money. Like, maybe it speaks more to that than the psychology of actually entering into it, of your free will.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, like I say, would I do it? No. Do I watch it? Not really. You see the odd clip that gets sent to you every now and then. But yeah, good luck to you if you want to do it.
Do it. Thanks for emailing that in, Tim. And if anyone else wants to get involved, you can email the buy round buyaround@gmail.com. We love doing these messages of the weeks, Jimmy. They're great. I mean, if you want to hit us up, the buyaround@gmail.com, comment on Spotify, DM us on Instagram, DM us on TikTok even. We will read it, and we will, the best ones every week we'll do on the show.
We've got some smart listeners. We've got some very intelligent listeners that care about the game, care about things in and around the game.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got a rundown here which focuses on mainly football issues and then a bit of review stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know. What
Like
you
the
think
one
in
last
comments.
week was great. Like genuinely explained the ladder now. So now we know
Yeah.
buys are so
Yes.
the ladder is sorted by losses, which is correct.
Yes, it
I've
is.
gone back and looked at all the different rounds. Spot on.
It is, yeah. How good's that? Let me know.
The other thing we want to start doing as well is, I want to start doing this, Jimmy, if you're up for it, because basically it got me thinking. Josh Reynolds the other day on Triple M said Carmichael Hunt on Triple M when talking about the big hunts come on.
Yes,
that's
he
what
did.
he said.
It put me into a fit of laughter. It was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
And the best thing about it was he tried to pass it off as if he didn't say that particular word when
He
was
very clearly did.
clear as day.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, what are you laughing at? And it's like, mate, you know what I'm laughing at.
Yeah, he tried to play it off as the
Mm.
big guns. It just wasn't true. But I was thinking we could do Can You Make Jimmy Laugh? Because if you haven't seen that video, go and watch it. Jimmy laughing, it's a sight to behold. The man convulses. He has a very interesting laugh. But we're going to do it basically. You can send in a video every week. We'll probably do it to finish the show every week.
Yeah, let's do it. I like
Do you
the
want to do
idea.
it now? I've got one now that I can
if
play
you've got
for you
one
if you
now,
want. It's
yeah,
just a little
give it-
video I
yeah.
saw that came across on basically of a runner. I think his name was Ollie Robinson or something like that. Chris Robinson. And he's a hurdler.
A hurdler.
He's
Okay.
taking on the 400-meter hurdles. He actually gets the win, which is incredible.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, I'll let you watch it and have a
Okay,
look.
here we go.
There you go. It's
I
on
just need
TikTok.
to
I don't know if you know how to work TikTok, but you can
just
try your
press,
best.
play there, I guess. Oh, hello. Oh, hello.
Certain parts of his equipment and possibly his anatomy down the straight down around that top bend. Goodness me, that's a very relieved Chris Robinson. He's a tall fella. Congratulations to Chris Robinson.
Oh, they show it again.
It does emerge occasionally,
Oh,
perhaps in a race.
So he actually wins that race.
oh my goodness me, that is.
Certain parts of his equipment and possibly his anatomy down the
Great commentary as well. Great commentary.
That is,
brilliant.
Sensational.
400-meter hurdler, Chris Robinson. He wins
Is it
the race.
400 or 100?
400 now, 400
Oh, he's on
meter.
the
So it's a
400
long
meter.
one. Yeah, it's a long one. But
That's true. It was a long one.
gets the win. The Origin teams are in as well, Jimmy. So if you want to get involved in that, send us in your videos. And same place as I said before, and you can try and make Jimmy last once a week. But Origin teams are in. The big things, obviously, for Queensland, we'll start with it. Hammers at fullback. But before we talk about that, Shibasaki, Jimmy, into the team. What a story.
It is an amazing story, and it's got me thinking, like, what is Slater seeing that most people in the game aren't? Because when discussing Queensland's selection issue, when Ponga went down with experts in the game, this wasn't on the radar. So most people had it as a Ponga out, so it's a Walsh in, his audition, which I think he passed against the Warriors. And then it was, over to the Hammer. Let's see what he can bring to the party. And obviously got those 4 tries. If the Hammer comes in at fullback, that opens up a spot on the wing, which we assumed would go to Murray Taulagi. Right.
That's what we were all assuming, yeah.
It was option 1, straight swap.
Yep.
Walsh in, Ponga out, Hammer in, Taulagi in. Then, obviously, late last night, talk of Shibasaki getting the nod, Hammer to the back, Shibasaki into the centres, which then pushes Holmes out to the wing. I'm still confused because I guess that next move, if Talangi's out, would have for me probably would have been Jesse Arthurs, who's been 18th man for Queensland. It makes you wonder if Cobbo had been playing consistent football for Brisbane, would he have featured? I would say likely yes. And again, this is nothing against Shibasaki because it is an amazing story and he's played well in a...
I mean, he's right up there with the top try scorers in the competition this year.
Yeah.
Right up there at the top.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But this is a state of origin decider when there's a tremendous amount of pressure. And Billy Slater's proved that he's not afraid to make bold calls when it comes to his selections. Even you'd think, they've pulled Papali'i from retirement, deemed as Alfie 2.0. You've got Dane Gegai there as well that it could have filled in with that experience in the outside backs.
I guess the difference in there is like Josh Papali'i's playing in the team at the top of the ladder and playing really well in that team as well, whereas Gagai's playing in the team battling for the spoon in the Newcastle Knights.
You're correct, but then, when you're playing in one of those teams down near the bottom and you get given that lifeline to come and play state of... Imagine the boost.
Yeah.
And just the confidence and level of aggression that Gagai would approach something like this with. For me, the Shibasaki move is... Like I say, it's more of a fascination. Like what's... I know obviously you say he scores tries, but what's elevated him from, not even being on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
Anybody's radar. To put him into this... Again, the context of the game is this is a decider where, again, experience clearly counts in Billy Slater's, values of selection.
Yeah.
Because he's gone and got Papali'i out of retirement again and brought him in for Mo Fodawaker, who I thought he had a pretty decent game in game 2. Where,
he's all right. He didn't blow anyone away or anything.
No, but he held his gloves up and he he was there in game 1, there in game 2, but he's gone with the more experienced Papali'i.
Yeah.
And instead of going with experience or people that have been there before, he's gone with this 27, 28-year-old, I don't like to use the term...
Bolter.
Journeyman or bolt, but like who's, he's in career best form, but I mean, like I said, I just can't...
But Gagai is a right centre. Shibasaki's playing as a left centre.
Yeah.
Toya's obviously going to play on the right.
Yeah.
That's where he's been all.
Yeah.
So, like, that's another thing that, I know left centre, right centre doesn't make that big a difference, but maybe that's the thing that just made him go with Shibasaki.
Maybe.
And, mate, like, he is right up there at the top of the try scorers in the competition this year. Yes, he was on a train trial deal, but he's playing really well.
He is playing.
And the reason maybe no one's talking about it is because no one's thinking about it as deeply as Billy as well. So there's those two options, but Billy goes, well, there's more than that. We got this guy Shibasaki killing it at the Broncos this year. Michael Maguire, for all the criticism he's got, he has resurrected this guy's career, and it's an awesome story. He was playing for Townsville, like not long ago, not even the Cowboys, the Townsville, I think they're the Blackhawks, I'm pretty sure, playing reserve grade there. He came to Brisbane on a train trial, $1,000 a week deal is what he came in here at the start. And then now he's elevated to their top 30 earlier in the year. But it's an incredible story.
Incredible. And congratulations to. But obviously, for us that talk about the game, even like we're here, we're talking, we have a podcast. Charlie, these conversations are happening all across Queensland in the pubs, the cafes, the school drop-offs, the gyms, the barbershops. Like everywhere you go, people are having this conversation around, it's a great story, but...
Yeah, but I think it's the correct decision to pick him.
Okay.
I think Hammer at fullback is their best fullback option. Do you agree with that? Do you think Hammer is better than Walsh in that team?
I don't know.
It's a tough one. It is a really tough one.
I don't know is the answer to that question. Walsh has clearly made a difference to Brisbane.
Yep.
This year. And I've said this before when selecting the origin fullbacks out of those three, because Queensland are spoilt for choice there with Ponga, Walsh, Hammer. My observation of origin, it's more about defence than the ability to break the game open, because all three can do that. in their own different ways.
Yeah.
But I would have looked, and especially Slater being an ex-fullback, a person that I guess evolutionized the position, advanced it to the current stage that it's at. He was probably the genesis of advancing fullbacks roles and what's expected of them, especially defensively. For everything that he bought with the ball, he bought so much more without the ball. I thought it would go down to the best defender. And there are some people that say that Hammer, with the ball, amazing, but can get caught out positionally at times. It's probably something that goes beyond me as a fullback expert. But then when it gets pointed out to you, you see, he's gone to the shorter side, filling up the A defender, which leaves him exposed, and you get it explained to you. Oh, okay, I see now where the great fullbacks, they position themselves in the correct areas because they know the kick threat and just the nuance difference. And I'm not saying that Walsh is maybe there, but obviously again the fact of being in that fullback role before. The Hammer played fullback in the game 1 of last year, but he was
so Reece Walsh got knocked out, and then Hammer moved to the fullback. But Jimmy, when did Queensland last look at their best? It was probably that game after Walsh gets knocked out. After Walsh gets knocked out, that was probably the best Queensland looked, and it was with the Hammer at fullback
against 12 players, 12 men.
It still was the best they looked attacking wise.
Well, and they should look that.
You know,
they're playing against 12 men for 75 minutes. They should look their best then.
But also, if you think that it's just about defense, well, I think it's too close to call almost between Hammer and Walsh. Who's the better defender? Who knows? But the team, the Broncos form. Is that as good as people are saying it as well over the last few weeks? Oh, Walsh has come in, they've won a few games. They beat the Warriors, who were depleted by injuries, had like almost no one on the bench at the end of it, and the Warriors still almost won. If Edward Cozy catches that ball and scores, it's going to be a 4-point game. He's a wide open line, he'll score every day of the week. You know, there's a kick to come from the sideline to make it a 2-point game. It's game on. So they just scraped past the Warriors. They beat the Sharks, who everyone says is in a world of hurt.
And they should have, the Sharks
probably beating them.
Blew that game. Yeah.
And then they beat the Titans.
Yeah.
Walsh.
But you could say the same for Shibasaki then.
Yeah, you can, but Shibasaki's not playing as an influential role because he's playing the outside backs, and what Shibasaki's doing well is when he gets opportunities, he's finishing those and scoring tries.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go, mate.
I was going to say.
Walsh's injury is something that you got to think about as well.
Yeah, granted, and maybe that's part of it because, again, the easy option is to just bring Walsh in. It's one change, straight swap, as opposed to Hammer into fullback, which I know you can dance around and go, well, look, it is a straight swap. It's one in, one out. But it's the Hammer spent time there on the wing in preparation, and it causes less disruption. Like the Walsh in is the easier move. He's been named as 18th man as well, which I'm intrigued to see how that plays out because, again, usually with the 18th man selection, it's probably someone not in that same regard as Reece Walsh.
Yeah.
In terms of stature in the game.
Especially when they've missed out on the selection.
Exactly, yeah. So it was a shootout between Hammer and Walsh.
Yeah.
Hammer gets the nod, and then Walsh is 18th man. Like, it seems odd.
Yeah, it's a big call. It kind of, maybe it just says Billy wants them both in camp and Billy wants Walsh there, and, Billy wants to explain to him why he's 18th man and just show that he is part of Queensland's plans. Hammer's probably in better nick, body-wise.
Yeah.
And that's why he's got the position.
Yeah. You make some good points, Charlie.
As do you, James. Great for the Bulldogs, though.
Well,
great for the Bulls that Walsh is 18th man. I know you've lost Carraz.
You know what? I want the... Look, we'll get into the Dogs a bit later on, but I want the Dogs playing against Brisbane's best.
Yeah, true.
I want Bulldogs best against Broncos best.
Yep.
Look, and I know it's affected by Origin. We knew that a long time ago, but I don't take any joy in the fact that Reece Walsh is there.
No.
Like, the Bulldogs don't need 2 points.
Yeah.
They need to perform against the best teams.
The worst part about these ones as well is it's because the game's on Friday. Like, it's 5 days away, the next game. It's like, surely at the off chance they play, they're only going to be playing, let's say, 20, 30 minutes. Who knows?
Well, Walsh and Carraz, in my opinion, should be playing for their respective clubs on Friday. But anyway, you know what? Actually, speaking Origin eligibility and the ability to play 18th man, it's actually got me thinking, and I'm interested to hear the viewers' point on this, because I know there's that old tagline of whereabouts is this? Oh, it's in Queensland, and how eligibility rules in state of origin aren't as some people in the public would like them to be. They're not as solid as people would ideally like. Like, what's it mean to be a Queenslander? What's it mean to be a New South Welshman? Or to be able to represent New South Wales. The Lions have come over and they played the game in Perth, and the stadium announcer was almost joking. Well, no, not well. He was putting shit on the Lions players for where they were born. Oh, here's really? Here's Australian-born centre, Kiwi-born winger, Scottish captain, born from. Thanks for New Zealand for so. And some of those players and we spoke with Benny Teo, who was on it was more residency than a grandparent, or was it a grandparent? I can't remember.
I think it was some sort of family connection. But Ben's the biggest, one of those. He's played Origin, played for then England in rugby union. I think he's played for Australia as well for league.
And then I've looked at. There was one in athletics where Qatar basically paid this Turkish athlete $500,000 to just come and represent them.
Yeah, wow.
It's well, what? And obviously in a sport like athletics, your country that you're born in should matter, but really you're not. You're just competing to be the best version of yourself. There's no. Would you run for your country?
I think you do in a sense, but when you think of Usain Bolt, do you think that he's from Jamaica, or do you think of Usain Bolt?
Yeah, he's not. Is he running for Jamaica?
He is. Of course, he's running for
himself.
Yeah, no, you're competing for the gold medal tally for your country. But when you think of Michael Phelps, you don't think that he's USA's greatest ever athlete. You think he's the best swimmer of all time. Michael Phelps, the person, not where he's from.
Yeah.
Usain Bolt, you don't go, the Jamaican's greatest ever athlete.
But he would be.
Yeah, of course he would be.
So in athletics, basically people can be bought. And I think up until quite recently, it's maybe a 3-year residency. And there was a union player from South Africa. I was actually listening to this podcast, The Real Science of Sport, South Africa, which is interesting in terms of the Perth Bears. South Africa have an oversupply of rugby union players. And I guess what you would call the home countries of Britain and France, for that matter, are going to South Africa, signing up schoolboys at the age of 16, 17, 18, knowing that it's a 3-year residency, getting them into their systems. And in 3 years' time, bang, you can qualify to play for France, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England.
Yeah, wow.
And, for all the pushback against Origin eligibility, I think you can make a strong case that league do it the best. They were also saying the soccer player Vinnie Jones, who now actor, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels in Snatch, he was never good enough to play for England. So he sort of shopped himself around to Ireland and Wales. Yeah. And because he wanted to play international football. So he basically, he found he had 2 options and then went with the best case. But
so who did he play for in the end?
Wales,
right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it just got me thinking about Origin eligibility, like I say, and that pushback. But I'd be interested to know what our listeners think about. Do those rules need further examination and further boundaries, or do we go down the path of other sports where, I guess, representation can be bought?
No, you don't want that. You don't want that.
I know we don't want that, but other sports have done that.
The only thing I think needs cleaning up is that if Tino can go play for Tonga or Samoa, I think he's Samoan. Sorry, Tino. Then Victor Radley should be able to play for Origin as well as playing for England.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
But then what about New Zealand as well?
Yeah, well, it would have to be the same rule for all of them. But they still have to be eligible. Like Victor Radley is eligible for New South Wales because he was basically born here.
Yeah.
He's lived his whole life here. Like,
so someone like Ponga, for example, could play for Queensland and play for New Zealand.
Which is apparently who he wants to play for anyway. Yeah. So, like, if he wants to play for New Zealand, we'll let him.
Yeah, and almost treat Origin as a complete separate entity.
You still have to be eligible.
Yes.
Like, you and Sam Burgess couldn't have gone and played for New South Wales because you didn't grow up here. I still think you need to have grown up here. And I think the age cutoff at the moment, I think it's 11 years old, 12 years old, something like that. Keep that. That's fine. I think that's fair enough as well.
Yeah, but like, so that leads into it where that is the strictest eligibility rules that I can think of that exist in sport, that you have to be living, residing, playing your football in that state from the age of 11. There's no, like Ronaldo Mulatalo was close to being named for Queensland. Did he originally sort of mislead on a form, and then it was put to him?
A previous form, the date was incorrect. I think then New South Wales did some research, found out that he was not eligible, and got him out of the team.
Well, they basically said, look, if this is found out to be a misrepresentation of the truth, the result, any positive result for Queensland would be void. So,
and now Ronaldo Mulatalo represents New Zealand. As a result, Michael Maguire then brought him into New Zealand.
But I think you make a good point there about Victor Radley, just because he plays for England. As long as he is eligible to play for New South Wales or Queensland, he should be able to play. There shouldn't be a restriction, or it's almost a restriction of trade. But then maybe some purists would argue that, no, if you're a Queenslander, then you are Australian by default and definition. But that's clearly not the case, due to the fact that, people like Stephen Crichton have played for New South Wales and then played for Samoa. So it is something that I think the NRL and the International Rugby League need to look at, because, well, sooner or later it's going to come to a head.
Well, because AJ Brimson is now going to play for England. Have you been across that? If he gets picked, of course, because he's representing Queensland. He was part of the Queensland team that was the worst Queensland team of all time. I think he played in another Origin game in the last couple of years as well. I think he played maybe 2023, might have played a game as well.
I forgot that he's played for Queensland. I'm surprised that he's allowed to do that.
Well, I think that he's represented Australia at nines before, and they've made the nines. At the time, they made it that if you played for that nines team, that had carried over for the international rules for all representation. They've backflipped on that, which also means that Kalen Ponga can actually now go to New Zealand as well and play for New Zealand if he wants to. And that's why everyone suggests is why he pulled out of the Pacific Championships at the end of last year.
I know people were suggesting that, but if he did play for New Zealand at the next World Cup, that would mean
he's out of
ineligible for State of Origin,
of course.
right?
It takes AJ out as well. As soon as AJ plays for England, he's
gone.
He's the same as Radley. He can't have both. New South Wales, just quickly, the team hasn't changed, so not too much to dig into there. The only thing that I thought was strange was you've gone with Matt Burton the whole time at 18th man. Why change to Kiraz?
Yeah, you make a decent point, especially with Luai's hospital visit, Cleary's leg. You'd think that your natural choice would have been a halfback, Kiraz in for maybe cover for Toto. But I mean, if an 18th man needs to be brought in to contention, do I want a centre winger? I mean, I'm sure Laurie Daly's given us enough thought about like the makeup of his bench, and if that bench went down to 2 and then Kiraz comes in, how that would all, like, it'd be chaotic. And
Matt Burton can play centre though.
Yeah.
And Crichton could shift to a wing. So it's like, if you're going to lose, surely Matt Burton, he was the best 18th man choice. You just go with him again.
Yeah, it does seem strange.
Yeah. It's almost like a reaction to the media pressure being like, Matt Burton, he's always getting picked as 18th man.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. But I think what this says, Laurie Daly, he obviously very loyal. and he's looked at the game and assessed it's not a personnel issue, which would bring so much confidence to that group.
Yeah, because there was talk Kalama Tangi might come in, but you're happy with your Toy Kamano staying in the team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just quickly talk about the Tigers then. Actually, before we go, origin-wise, good question for you. Billy Slater, Laurie Daly, who do you think's under more pressure going into this decider?
Result, Laurie Daly. Performance, Slater. So there was New South Wales were expected to win this series 3-0, especially after game one. If they don't get the result, the analysis of game two, we don't know what will happen in game three, but if Queensland win, it will be the upset of the ages, especially when you look at their team. Oh, they got Papali'i out of retirement, Shibasaki in this. How could this team not exploit this training trial guy? So the story's already there. If New South Wales lose, right? So you can write the headlines tomorrow. You know, or it becomes a discipline issue. They let themselves down with the discipline. They didn't learn from game two, the goal kicking. The pressure's on Daly to get the result. The pressure's on Slater to get a performance. So the removal and moving on from Daly Cherry Evans as captain, I think Dearden ticked the box game one, but in the game three decider, was that the right call? So that decision or that selection, it has been scrutinised, but it's potentially not over. Shibasaki coming into the centres, if he doesn't perform, what are people going to make of that? That's going to be, well, you know what I would have done? Or the Hammer at fullback. There's an element of risk. I think he's more of a risky choice than Walsh in terms of what could happen after a performance.
What if Walsh does his knee though straight away?
Well, yeah, of course. Well, but if that was to happen, you'd go, well, we assessed all that and we were confident he would get through, and it's just unlucky.
Yeah.
And then that is the fullback. But with the Hammer, if he doesn't perform at fullback, then that question comes. Like I say, the Shibasaki, that is a big call. Papali'i has been amazing. There was calls for him to come back in last year. He didn't do that. And it's a really good feel factor story for Josh Papali'i. And I think it's fair to say he deserves to be there. And I'm saying this pre-game, but after the fact, when the pens come out, if the performance is below par, this is all going to be on Slater. So I think there's more pressure on Laurie Daly to get a result. There's more pressure on Billy Slater for a performance, because even when I look back at game one, it kind of annoyed me a bit, really, because, and it happens in our sport and in other sports where we react to the result as opposed to people's performance. So all the talk after game two was how rubbish, like the player reviews, the commentary around, like how poor New South Wales. It was actually two really good sides going up against each other. There's got to be a winner. There's got to be a loser. New South Wales ran out of time. Look, the goal kicking, they scored more tries, but if Payne Haas keeps hold of that football and they get them on the next play, New South Wales are the best thing since sliced bread. They've orchestrated the biggest comeback in Origin history. And, how would Cherry Evans, the experience, number 7, he'd have saved that for us. But instead, Queensland players are lauded as these geniuses that had this perfect first half. It was actually two really good football sides going up against each other. Same with the Bulldogs and Penrith game, which we're going to look at in a bit. Yeah. Like, people, I hear I've been made aware of some online commentary like, the Bulldogs with Galvin, they got figured out by Cleary. You joking me? You replay that game 10 times, the Dogs win 5 and Penrith win 5. And that's exactly what you should want. Same with State of Origin. You should want Queensland and New South Wales to go up against each other And roughly speaking, 5 out of 10 games Queensland win, 5 out of 10 is New South Wales win. And I think that's probably where it's at.
Yeah.
But like I say, the level of performance should be scrutinised, not the outcome. But that's the results-based industry that we live in.
Yeah. I saw Laurie Daly actually in Perth. We went down, we were finished our game commentary upstairs, Triple M, then went downstairs. We were going through a tunnel, walking out, and Laurie Daly was walking through. I mean, he must have just finished his press conference he looked so exhausted and dejected. He looked like a broken man almost walking through the tunnel there, like so much energy being put into that game and they fell short. But the reality is, I think you're 100% right. Like, it was a great game, 2 great teams, but New South Wales probably just have too much for them in this game 3.
Yeah,
you would assume.
You would assume, you learn from previous mistakes. Okay, let's put aside the person in the middle with the whistle. We can't control that. We can control some things that we do or we don't do.
Yeah.
He may be judging us differently than the opposition, but that's fine.
Yeah.
We move on and we're squeaky clean. No excuses in that department. And then, look, we know when we get our football on, we've got points in us.
Yeah. When you outscored them with tries anyway. It was 5 tries.
Yeah,
to 4.
exactly.
I mean, I think if that obstruction, where Cleary scored the try and then it got overturned, became a no try with the obstruction. If that was a try, it's 20-12.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next set, Queensland score and make it 26-6. Like, it could have been actually a New South Wales could have won by plenty.
Yeah.
They really could have. There's a couple of moments in that game. Tallyn Da Silva. This is, I find bizarre, Jimmy. The Tigers have let him go effective immediately. 4.5-year deal, which got officially confirmed today. Why are they letting him go now?
Charlie, you know why they're letting them go? Why they're letting him go early? Because it's the Tigers.
Yeah. The Tigers are tigering.
And that is what they do.
Yeah.
And if Api Coruscant joins the Perth Bears, you read that headline, you go, oh, it's interesting. You're not going, whoa, didn't see that coming.
No.
It's, look, the fact that Api Coruscant has not been officially re-signed and they're allowing Da Silva to go is mind-boggling. I do not understand how the decision makers have gone through a process where they have signed off on that. It is just perplexing. Put that to one side. Why are you allowing this youngster to go with 18 months left on his deal when the competitor to his place is turning 33 in November?
Yeah.
So,
and you're not in a premiership window.
We can even we'll examine that later. If Api gets injured, the goalposts change. Yeah. They move. And then it becomes maybe Da Silva's the man. And look, we've seen glimpses of Da Silva. We don't know if he's the finished product yet. A lot of, water to go under the bridge. But Parramatta obviously see something. They're giving him a very healthy contract for a 20-year-old that they probably didn't need to push the boat out that far, but they've gone, this is what he's worth. And then, like you say, for the Tigers, in terms of short-term thinking, the long-term strategy, what is that? Because from my recollection, Richardson said he was that the philosophy, the future is juniors. Yeah. And they've let 2 of their best in the last decade, definitely since Teddy and Moses, go out the door with 18 months left up their sleeve. Yeah. Now, maybe there are some reasons for that, but I don't understand why you would. This is not a situation where you quicken up the process. Who cares if you develop Da Silva a little bit further than what he would? Why are you doing the work of Parramatta? Well, to get you wins. Maybe convince him to stay. Maybe convince him that there's life after Api, that 14 role could be filled by him, and they play 2 hooker approach like they did against the Dolphins in round 3 or 4.
Yeah. I mean, to not have Api deal done as well. Like, yes, Appy's a November 1 guy, but the Tigers can sign him right now and upgrade him and do the extension right now. How they've let him go without having that deal locked in, it makes zero sense.
It genuinely doesn't.
Because Appy could turn around and go, no, yeah, I'm gonna leave now. And yeah, sure, he might have told Benji and Richo that he's committed. But if another team comes and offers more money than he's on, I know Appy Coruscant wants $800,000 a year. The Tigers haven't said that. I said they're not willing to go do that. What if Perth Bears say they are willing to give him $100,000 a year?
Will.
Yeah, so then he does leave, which would be disastrous.
Maybe not.
You think about a team building a long-term future and they've lost their two best young players, and as much as everyone loves to bash the Tigers and do all that, it actually is disastrous. If any club had a coach that was not improving year after year and now is losing all of the best young players, there'd be a lot of pressure on them. And there is now a lot of pressure on Benji. And it's unfortunate it's going this way, because I think there's a lot of like positives at the Tigers, and it seems like they're, in some ways, they're going in the right direction, but you can't lose your best young players and then build a team that's going to win premierships in the future.
Well, I just spoke there about how we review and analyse the game. We look at wins and losses. A lot of people are judged on that. But then look at the performance. So look at the performance of the Tigers. I think they've improved. They've just not improved enough. And they're clearly a team that are accustomed to losing. Yeah, they had a couple of wins earlier on in the year, but, you know, time tells, and they've gone back into that we don't know how to win anymore. And they had some really close games there where I think they ticked all the boxes in terms of performance.
Pushed Penrith, pushed Canberra, both two teams competing for the title. Their only really, really bad loss has been Melbourne, that 64-0 drubbing.
But, mate, the performance against Manly
was poor.
Like, that, maybe we're being harsh because we got treated to the game of the year on Thursday, but the opening 39 minutes of that game was two teams playing not to lose as opposed to trying to win. Well, and the Tigers looked very much on edge. I know they had a late withdrawal with Luai, but okay, so we looked at the performance. It's improved a bit, but nowhere near enough. Can Benji squeeze more juice? Can he keep them going? We don't know. You know, he's lost 6 in a row now. He's not had experience in less consequential roles like the Super League, like New South Wales Cup. So he's not. This is his first crack of the whip when it comes to being a head coach, and he's got friends in the game to call, but he's not got that lived experience. And then there are other elements of a football club in terms of win, losses, and performance. It's how that football club runs its not just day-to-day operations, that's important, but also what might be described as the vision. Like, we've spoke about the two best young players that they could and should have been Tigers players for the next 12 years. Now they're not, and they won't be going back there. But also, what is the long-term strategy here?
I don't know. You would have thought Benji's obviously chose to back Appy and Jerome Luai, and that be his like leadership group that he's going to listen to. And apparently the players have a lot of power at the Tigers, and particularly Jerome Luai and Appy Coruscant have a lot of influence, and they have Benji's ear quite closely. But maybe that's a sign of his inexperience, of maybe listening to those guys too much, those experienced players, and not thinking about those young players that they need for the next 5-10 years. And it's easy as a coach probably to do that because you need to rely on the now in order to have the job in 5-10 years' time. But
well, coaches will lean on their more senior players. That's only natural. That's not a criticism of Benji.
There are people within Tigers though that like are part of the decision-making process there, that don't have as much influence as Richo and Benji, that are flabbergasted by this decision to let Tallyn Da Silva go.
And so they should be.
They don't understand it at all.
Yeah, what's the point in rushing it?
Yeah.
Like, what happens if Appy at the age of 33 goes down injured?
And I get Galvin they had to let go because he had this bullying dossier that was put together. They didn't need to let Tallyn go.
They didn't need to let Lockie Galvin go.
No, they didn't. No, you're right. They didn't.
It was the reason Lockie Galvin is playing at the Bulldogs in 2025 is the Tigers
Yeah.
and that statement that they put out.
Yeah.
That's the reason he's playing at the Bulldogs this year.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And then it opened, all that online bullying and all that stuff opened up their bullying argument and probably gave more weight to this dossier that Isaac Moses had put together. And
that, right, what's the first domino
at the Tigers
in terms of the Galvin stuff? The first,
Well, the first
domino that is made public.
Well, the first domino was Isaac Moses' meeting with Shane Richardson.
Okay.
And him pulling out this dossier and it was targeted at the coach as well, basically saying that Lockie doesn't feel he can develop under Benji. That was in there. And then Shane Richardson probably was maybe a little bit too emotional and released this statement without letting things cool off. He straight away went out in the statement. They didn't have a media manager at the time. I think they still don't have a media manager. So Richo just made that call and went for it through it. And it wasn't the right one. It wasn't.
No, I and again, I said this previously around how the Tigers should have reacted to that news that Lockie wants to go or isn't entertaining this deal that they've tabled with disappointment, but not with surrender and the white flag. They should have gone back to the drawing board and considered about what can make this young man stay, and making that young man stay is making him happy, and then playing finals this year when in and around that time they maybe could have.
Yeah, 100%.
And obviously there's a number of reasons why the Tigers are underperforming. The destable news of Galvin and all that went on, they're underperforming. There's a few injuries here and there. Nothing like other football clubs, but it's just as a Tigers fan, you must be so frustrated because what direction is that football club going in now?
Yeah.
Like who do you believe? Like do you believe Shane Richardson? Do you look to Benji Marshall? Do you look to Luai and Coruscant? Because all three groups, senior players, but both Coruscant and Luai, who are the most influential players at that football club, one of them has a release clause and one of them is off contract. So where are they taking the long-term vision of the football club? I don't know.
Yeah.
Benji Marshall is inexperienced coach. Where's his, he's more short-term thinking and 100% to be that way inclined. Shane Richardson, he probably more, you've got to assume long-term thinking. He'll see the fruit. He wants to see the fruits of his work later down the track. He's not, he's a very experienced operator, as we know. We've had him on the show a number of times, spoken around the Tigers having the best spine in the comp at the beginning of the year.
Unfortunately, none of them will be able to play on Tuesday when the teams come out because Buller's obviously out with his hamstring injury, Luai's in Origin, Galvin's playing for the Bulldogs, and Apikorisau's out with the HIA.
Yeah.
And so even if the little things like, you let him go, Tallyn's needed for this Sunday coming. So is not every game important? Just to have that potential of having him as your starting hooker for at least one game worth, who cares, letting him go?
Yeah.
It does make you think who's got the power at the Tigers. Is it Richardson or is it Benji Marshall? Because Richardson wanted to keep Tallyn Da Silva and Benji wanted to keep Apikorisau. So does this mean that now Benji's the person who is the alpha at West Tigers and Richo has not got the power?
Well, that's how it probably looks. But what with this, not infighting, but with this volatile situation, maybe that's why Da Silva, he probably wanted to go, and that's how he's got it early, because he's got people pulling. People can manipulate situations when they see and sense an unaligned club and people pointing in different directions and rowing in the opposite direction. People can manipulate that. If you've got a desire to get out, that's the type of club that you can get out of.
Yep, definitely.
Because there's a power struggle. You want
to look at the complete opposite end of the spectrum with stuff like this in a club that can handle their issues. Look at the Canberra Raiders. 2 years ago, Joe Tarpany wanted out, Jordan Rapana wanted out. They were all fighting in with Ricky Stewart. All the players were off Ricky. And now look at where they're at. Ricky Stewart, the genius that he is, able to bring that group together, get everyone back singing from the same hymn sheet, finding out what people's issues are, and I imagine fixing them and solving them and helping them get through these processes and making sure everyone was happy. Now they're sitting top of the table. And all those players that Rapana's obviously retired, but, you know, Tarpany's still there and he's Canberra's most influential player.
Well, it's also, like, I guess the idea of being a coach would be romanticized by most former players. Like, I'd say the overwhelming majority of players in the game now, of former players, would have had that, I think I'd love to be a coach. And I'm no different. I harbored dreams to be a coach for quite some time. And you can fall in love with that idea that it's all going to be about, you know, the development of young people, like being a big part, handing people their debut jersey, or, you know, taking a team into finals, riding the emotion, you know, being the leader of a team of men that go in and maybe win a premiership one day. And you fall in love with that idea, and I get it, but you're going to face difficult times and difficult moments. And what you're saying about Ricky Stewart, how much experience does he have to know that these good times are going to come and go, and the bad times are going to come and go? And with the Tigers, that all they know, apart from the 05 and a couple of years, is bad times, and it was so long ago now. But this current crop, like, and Benji and not Richardson, but all they know is difficult times there. And especially as a coach, like, knowing when to pull back, knowing when to go harder, knowing how and when to make difficult decisions. And really, the decision with Da Silva, for me, I don't think that was a difficult one, to just say, mate, we're just going to keep you here till at least the end of the season.
I wonder, just on that power dynamic, I wonder if Shane Richardson is letting Benji make his decision to create a narrative that mistakes have been made by Benji, and saying, oh, well, this is Benji's decision, and it backfiring, and then that being another reason that they can move on from him.
I don't know if that's a bit tinfoil hatty.
It's very tinfoil hatty. But, I mean, it's strange. It's just a strange. It makes no sense. I can't really get my head around it. There was no Tallyn Da Silva attitude issue. There was no infighting with Tallyn Da Silva and the other players. Like, it's just, you're just letting him go a year and a half early to a rival club, to a Western Sydney rival club in Parramatta.
Well, the fact that there is no clear explanation, it leads you can't help but think or consider or toy with these ideas that there is something bigger at stake happening. The only thing is, the question you've got to ask is, if you're Richardson, where do you turn if Benji doesn't work? Like, where do you go to?
Well, he's been linked with Willie Peters' name. Buzz Rothfield's actually thrown it up today that Willie Peters' name and the Tigers has been thrown out there. I think Willie Peters was at South when Richo was the CEO, so they've got the relationship there. Whether or not Willie Peters would want the job, who knows? He's kind of like the hot coach of this time.
Well, and rightly so. He won a Challenge Cup there at Hull KR, first time in about 4 or 5 decades.
Best start they've ever had to a season.
Yeah, they're currently
right?
sitting top of the table. Like, they are, and from where that club, you know, was, to where he's got them from is remarkable. So you draw parallels. Hull KR were a bit of a basket case, a yo-yo. Tigers, like, he could transform the club because he's transformed one in England. But with the reputation that Willie Peters is starting to build, he's probably establishing himself in the same position as a Cam Serraldo, where he went and met the Tigers and just went, no. that's not for me. Cam Serraldo backed himself to land I'm not going to say a better job, but a job with more potential, and a job that doesn't require as much maybe political.
Well, Gus Gould maybe sold him the dream a bit as well. Like if you think about if you've got Gus Gould or Justin Pascoe knocking on your door. So I think Pascoe was CEO at the time, wasn't he? When they initially tried to get Serraldo, I think he was. So I think Gus Gould would have the better ability to sell the dream as well and pitch where things are going, because there wasn't that many green shoots at the Dogs.
No, there
when
wasn't.
Serraldo came in.
There's not many left from that roster. I think there's probably only Carraz and King. That's probably.
They gave him a 5-year deal and they said, you do what they trusted him.
But I don't know if Willie Peters legitimately would be looking at the Tigers going, "Oh, I'm that desperate for as harsh as this may sound, I'd be that desperate for an NRL job that I'd take that one."
Yeah, and Demetrio, he's another one of the good coaches who are not with an NRL club. He's now firming for the PNG job, I think, because Wayne Bennett's hesitant to move to Port Moresby full time, but Jason Demetrio is happy to, and he's already obviously the PNG Kumals coach as well.
Look, the Tigers to sum their situation up, not much has changed throughout the years, certainly since my time in the NRL.
Yeah.
And where they're at now in terms of they were looking and daring to dream of playing finals, that their goal is to avoid the wooden spoon. And they've got the Titans twice.
Yeah, and round 27, I actually said this 5-6 weeks ago when the Tigers were going well. I think they were I said they weren't out of the spoon race, and that round 27 spoon bowl is firming by the week.
Oh,
Titans v the Tigers at Seabus Super Stadium, 5:30 p.m. kickoff on the Saturday. Get ready for a great one.
Well, they play them in either 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think the next couple of weeks. I think they got them in 2 weeks' time, maybe. Even.
They go. Oh no, they go Roosters, Warriors, Tigers.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Roosters, Warriors, and Titans.
Let's talk about some of the footy from the weekend, though, Jim, because we'll start with the Instant Classic, all thanks to Classic Sports. If you want to become a buy-round VIP member at Classic Sports, there's heaps of deals that come through there. There's a link in our bio. Just click on that, jump on, sign yourself up. We've got something very big coming with Classic.
We do. Before we get into that, I know some people would see Classic and think, oh, it's just for the pros.
No, it's everything.
But if you've got a community club that needs looking after with their apparel, Classic are the way to go.
Yeah.
Get on board with them. They'll look after you. They'll get you exactly what you're looking for. But you're right, Charlie, we've got some huge news. What, this week, next week?
Next couple of weeks. I don't want to give an exact time frame.
We don't want to put a time frame on it,
but we've seen the samples.
Yes, we've witnessed the samples.
Yeah, and we can trust us when we say it's very high quality Classic stuff.
Yes.
When you feel it in your hands, you feel the quality. It's fantastic. It really is. You can gear up like a pro at classicsports.com.au, Jimmy. But
can I be honest? I'm looking forward to showing off what we've got, and also giving our listeners an opportunity as well
to be part of
something special, and the very beginning.
The very beginning, that's right, Jimmy. But our Instant Classic, it has to be the Panthers Bulldogs. It felt like a grand final match last Thursday. It does feel like a lifetime ago as well, that game. But Panthers Dogs, thrilling finish. I guess one of the big storylines out of it, Jimmy, was Lockie Galvin that you alluded to earlier. I think the main reason why he comes onto the field in his first involvement, Nathan Cleary shows a dummy and Lockie Galvin misses the tackle. That then leads to the momentum, which leads to then Cleary charging down and scoring that try. So in some ways, people are suggesting that maybe cost the Bulldogs the game because Reid Marnie was going so well at that point.
No, you're right. And I've got to give credit to Toby Sexton, who I think since the signing of Lockie Galvin, he has been immense. Like, he is making that introduction to the Dogs starting 13 so difficult because he is playing so well. Like, he reminds me of Zach Lomax in a way last year, where made the decision to move on, but he played his heart out for the St. George Illawarra Dragons, and Toby Sexton is just doing exactly the same. Either he's playing for a future at that football club, or he's saying to every other team in the NRL that needs a halfback, hey, maybe I'm your man because I can perform at this level. He's been sensational. I've got to give so much credit to Toby Sexton, how he's approached this. The game itself, Lockie Galvin coming on, look, he did miss that tackle, but I thought he actually changed the intensity of the Bulldogs' attack and changed the point of attack. And it certainly started to look to open up more opportunities, especially on that right-hand side of the field. Crichton versus McLean, amazing job for McLean. So there are, for people look at the negatives of it, with Galvin coming on, I've seen the positives, and that was certainly with the ball. I thought they looked more of a threat, the way he squared up, like some of those crisp passes that he was throwing out there. I thought he actually did a decent job. Overall, a good job in attack. Missed that one in defence, which people will highlight. But he fixed it up after that as well, which is important to note. What a game. It was grand final intensity. It's the most intense games I've seen live or on television since the 2024 grand final between Melbourne and Panthers. It was just I don't play chess, and people say it was like a game of chess. Well, if that's the case, I want to start playing chess because that was amazing. Like, it was tactical. It was high energy. The intensity was through the roof. It was desperate. There was big plays being pulled off. There was big plays just getting shut down. And at the end of the day, the Panthers won the game for all the skill and the masterclasses that Nathan Cleary can put on. It came down to an effort play. Came down to an effort play from Nathan Cleary that got them the game. People look back and go, why didn't the Dogs take the 2 points? I must admit, I was...
that was a mistake. I'm sure the Bulldogs would regret that themselves.
Yeah, I was... We did the commentary with James Tedesco, and I was trying to figure out just exactly... So it was on about the 30-metre mark. Whether or not it should have been a penalty is I think I can certainly see why it shouldn't have been.
I think Toto got a fine for it.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen... I got sent the clip of me commentating in there. Cherry should have passed the ball... Anyway,
who last play of the game was it Crichton? Crichton had the ball, didn't he? And he offloaded out to the wing.
Yeah, that just
who was on the wing? He just missed his mark.
Yeah, Carrazzo.
Do you reckon they score? I don't know.
I don't know.
The way Panthers were defending, they could have easily slid there and got there.
The other side, Cherry.
When he got through.
He should. Before they got the penalty, he probably should have passed a fraction earlier. And then to go for the 2 points or not go for the 2 points, it's about 30 metres out. It's a very, very difficult kick to send the game into golden point, which would have been amazing. Like, if there's a game of football that we wanted 10 more minutes worth of, that was it. And that, like I say before, you play that game 10 times, I think the Dogs win 5, the Panthers win 5, which is exactly what you need. And then when we're looking ahead, you go Penrith are back. They'll take... they don't need a confidence boost. They know where they're at. But from a Dogs perspective, this is what I'm thinking. We've just gone toe-to-toe with this team that, all right, they've been down on form a little bit, but they're still going to be one of the teams to beat come September. Don't fall into the trap that Penrith may play finals. They're going to be in there. They're going to be in the mixer. But what changes in September? Yeah, the pressure, the sudden death element, the winner advances, the loser goes home. Penrith have got that experience. What the Dogs are going to have in September is an army of supporters. If that game gets played anywhere, it's likely going to be at a core stadium. Even if it's at Combank, it's going to be... Dogs fans are going to be just outnumbering. They're going to bring such support. It was a Penrith home game on a Thursday night. You play that game with all those Dogs fans there, they're worth more than 2 points, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's something that the Dogs have got going for them that no other team inside the 8 have, in my opinion.
So disappointing, the Penrith fans. To only get 15,000 there, I know it's a longish, train bus journey, but Penrith have been organising buses direct from Penrith League Club for these. You think minimum 20,000 minimum for that.
It was a disappointing turnout.
How good the game was, and they said 15,000. There were so many empty seats. You look around, the top tiers were pretty much empty. It was disappointing.
That was. But honestly, what a game! I thought it. For all of 2025's amazing comeback victories, and we've seen so many where the comeback's been on, it's been off, and then on again. Miracles, and highlighted by the 2023 grand final, recent years. 7 minutes is nothing. And they're so exciting to watch. That game trumped all those because of the intensity and the quality on display.
Yeah.
It was non-stop. We were commentating and we could barely get a breath. Poor James Tedesco, if he thinks commentating is like that each and every week, I was like, mate, what? I almost felt like saying to him,
you got a good one here.
You don't fall into the trap that it's always this easy, because sometimes you basically you've got to be polite not to say how amateur it can be at
Such
times,
as Titans v Cowboys, for example,
or when teams have just clearly given up.
Yeah,
and look, it is what it is. But and to look at the tries that were scored, it was nice execution from the Dogs, and just effort from Nathan Cleary. I think again the Dogs look at that and take some learnings from that. I thought Martin and Cleary handled kick-out really well.
Yeah.
Really, they were flirting with being offside a little bit. They were getting up really quickly into kick-out and Burton's face on the left-hand side attack, Penrith's right-hand side defence. I thought they did a great job.
Yeah.
So I think that the Dogs would re-examine how they used kick-out and maybe just put some variation on their shape next time around, or they at least have that up their sleeve and go, okay, this is what we're going to do the first couple of times. We're going to figure this out. And that's what really good, that's what great sides have the ability to do, to adapt on the run. And maybe they didn't do that well enough because they had some opportunities to. I thought when they went to the right-hand side, they were looking more dangerous. McLean, again, that's the game of his life. That's the game of his career so far. And I don't think you can fault any of the players. Snyder didn't get on. Sissoko Fafita went off after the first hit of the game. But the other 32 players, take a bow.
Incredible game. The one thing I am worried about with Penrith, though, is every game they're playing at the moment feels really intense and has been tight. And they've obviously, dynasties have to end at some point. And they've been through this incredible run, 4 premierships in a row, 5 grand finals in a row. Just extraordinary. Are they going to have to put too much in, though, to get there this year? They're not going to finish in the top 4 unless we're about to talk about the Warriors. Heartbreak for them with Metcalf doing his ACL. That is just so sad. They may fall away, but the Warriors' run home is fairly soft. They've got, I think, the Titans twice and a lot of teams outside the top 8. Are they going to have to do too much, Jimmy? Is that going to be the issue? And then there's going to be about 6 good teams in the top 8 this year.
Yeah. So if they...
They've got 5 Origin players. Yeah, they had players play internationals in the Pacific Championships. They've been to Las Vegas. They obviously have played just so many games over the last few years. Could catch up to them.
Looking at the ladder, just from misfortune on the Warriors, they could get the top 4. But let's just say they don't, and the top 4 stays.
Can I just tell you the Warriors run home then, if you're going to suggest that? Because the Warriors run home is quite soft, Jimmy. I was looking at today. They've got the Tigers in round 19 is their next game. They've obviously got the bye this week. Then they've got the Knights away, the Titans at home, the Dolphins at home, the Dogs away, the Dragons at home, the Titans away, and the Eels at home. And they finish the year travelling to Brookie Oval.
Okay, so they've got
one tough game.
Yeah, they've got 9 games left, the Warriors. If they win 5,
They'll win 5 easy.
Okay. I reckon they need to win 5 to guarantee top 4.
I think they'll win 5 easily, even with the Metcalf ACL injury, which is just so sad. Them already losing Barnett and Metcalf. Yeah. This is the part that is the end. At the end of the day, the title, whoever wins the title, it's going to come down to luck and injuries.
Yeah.
And this is the Warriors. You can't put a line through them, but now they've lost Barnett and Metcalf, and we don't know how long Shans is going to be out for yet.
Okay. Let's look at the Panthers situation. I think they're locked in to play finals, and they might just know that in the going into the last couple of weeks, and then they might just rest a few players. So they're going to be in a predicament where I think they will seal their finals destiny long before the end of round 27. So I think they'll get that sewn up. I think down from the bottom 4 or 5th to 10th are in the mixer for those 4 spots. So two will miss out. One of those will not be Penrith Panthers, barring injury crisis, in my opinion. I think from the Dragons below, I think unfortunately that they're likely gone. One of those teams to go on a run, it for me, is highly unlikely. Maybe if the Cowboys got hot, maybe if the Bunnies got hot, but they're under massive injury clouds. The Dragons, I've not seen enough from them.
Dragons aren't making the 8. Come on, they're not making.
Not when you. But again, unless some teams fall over.
No, the Dragons aren't making the 8. The Dragons are more likely to get the spoon than make the 8. In all honesty,
so the Panthers in the mix are there. Round 1 of finals, they'll play the Broncos, the Roosters, the Dolphins, the Seagulls, or the Sharks. Win.
Yeah, but it's tough games though as well. Yeah, but Broncos could be a tough game. Dolphins could be a tough game.
No, I'm not disregarding the fact that it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I don't think you can guarantee that as a win.
Would they be favourites?
They'd be favourites, of course. Okay. Yeah.
Let's just say they win. Then they play the loser of a Raiders, a Dogs, a Storm, or a Warriors.
Yeah, you'd want to be playing if it was how it finishes right now, you want to be finishing 5th or 8th and playing the loser of Raiders Warriors, which let's say it's the Warriors.
Yeah.
Week 2, you've got to go to New Zealand in front of what would be a very hostile atmosphere, but you'd back Penrith in that game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't back Penrith travelling to Melbourne.
The intensity that they played at yesterday beats Melbourne. The intensity that they played at on Thursday beats Melbourne. And I think when I look back at their game against round 3, Penrith come away feeling better of the two sides.
Yeah. It's tough though. They're doing it the hard way this year. Yeah, they're doing it the hard way. If they're going to do it, it'll be their greatest premiership by far if they win this. Without a shadow of a doubt. Whoever wins this year's competition is going to be doing it. Is going to do it tough. Like the level of competition is so even right now. It's incredible, but I'm mapping out Penrith's road to Accor Stadium on the first Sunday in October as this is achievable, doable, and they are more than capable. I actually, coming out of that game, also think the Bulldogs are more of a premiership threat than I thought they were as well, with how they matched it with Penrith, that level of intensity. Because so the Stormer and Ladbrokes, they're $2.60 on Ladbrokes. I think Ladbrokes have got them so unders in terms of odds. I think they should be the same as the Dogs. I think the Dogs should be $4.50. I think the Raiders should be around that as well. I think to have the Storm at $2.60, I haven't seen it yet. Like even yesterday against Cronulla, like you called that game. They're clunky, Melbourne, in attack. And they make a lot of ill-disciplined, unstorm-like penalties and errors.
No, I agree, Charlie. I think this year's premiership race is wide open. I think the Broncos can get hot. I think, again, they would be looking at this, the makeup of it and going, we can get this. Like, if they can avoid Penrith in round 1 of the playoffs, so hope that they finish 5th and 6th, 5th and 6th, avoid each other in round 1 of week 1 of finals. I think, and then someone does their dirty work, beats Penrith for them in a war, and then they play that opposition maybe in the GF. That's their route to finals. I think the Broncos, again, because of the makeup of the top 4 with the Warriors fragile, we've said about the Storm, don't quite look the finished product just yet. And then with obviously we were looking at the pros of Canberra and Dogs who've been amazing this year, but they're inexperienced around that time.
Yeah,
like
Canberra's form hasn't been amazing. Like, I know they're winning every game, but they're keeping all their games been close wins the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, there's so many pros and cons. I reckon there's 6 teams that can win it, and I'm probably being probably a bit disingenuous to the Roosters.
I actually have the Dolphins above the Roosters though. I know the Roosters have 5 Origin players, but I think the Dolphins and the fact that they can score 50 points against almost anyone, and they've beaten the Storm, the Dolphins. They've beaten Penrith.
Yeah,
they've got good scouts.
Beat the Dogs.
They beat the Dogs, so they've got good scouts. Like they'll be back. They'll be backing themselves going into finals game.
You're right.
Well, maybe there's 8 teams that can win the comp.
Just on the Dolphins, I think next year's where they could. I think there'll be a top 4 team if everyone's fit. Like they're bringing in Cobbo, obviously big news, him breaking. That's sort of been overshadowed with all the stuff going on. He joins them. He finally put that one to bed. It's a relatively low risk signing, in my opinion, for the Dolphins because they've only got him for a year. So if it doesn't work out, they cut their ties and they move on. They also bring in. I think George Williams is pretty much a done deal there, and they've signed Morgan Knowles, one of my former teammates at St Helens. That is a Christian Wolf player. He knows him for his 3 years at St Helens there. So that's a massive. He's a very much.
Jeez, that's a big call though, George Williams.
To come in, yeah, I know.
To come in for Nicarima, obviously.
I thought the same. To be fair, I thought the same, but I think then Nicarima plays that 14 role perhaps.
Yeah.
Like, him coming off the bench, that's again adds to that attack that they bring with Marshall King and George Williams, a bit more of a steadier head. But the Dolphins, if Flagler can come back and replicate his form, Plath, Gilbert,
Daniel Saifiti,
that team is scary good for next year.
It is. Just before we wrap things up, just wanted to ask you a couple. We'll go through because we've gone a bit long today, so let's just go. We'll go rapid fire through his last few things. The Metcalf ACL injury, I know we just sort of touched on it there, but is that the Warriors done? It is.
Yeah, you need your best players fit and firing.
Yeah,
you certainly can't lose 2 of them.
Yeah, that's a shame. The Storm, we spoke about them. Yep. Cook, I loved what Damien Cook said about Kyle Flanagan. Obviously, they got the win. It is just beating Parramatta, though. I thought they were a bit sort of grandstandy in their press conferences. If we're back, we're looking great. But you beat Para. Well done.
By a millimetre.
Yes.
Yeah. The correct call, but by a millimetre. And then Zach Lomax, when he went on that run before he threw the intercept to Val Holmes from memory.
Yeah.
Like, Para were coming. They got away with that one, the Dragons. That was one of those, the comeback was on, off, off. It was unlucky from Para, like what I've seen from them in recent weeks. But yeah, Cookie going into bat, he's saying, and you know what? He's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
He summed it up perfectly. Well done, Cookie.
And then finally, Des Hasler. It just seems inevitable now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens in the next few weeks even. I don't understand why you would stick with Des until the rest of the year if, especially when mathematically it becomes clear that they're going to miss the 8. And then that means that they can get rid of him, and everyone knows that they're going to get rid of him if that's the case. Why you wouldn't just rip the Band-Aid off now?
Well, they can't, Charlie, because it's going to cost them.
So who cares? I hate this. I hate this. It's an NRL club. They get $17 million a year from the NRL.
Yeah, true.
And they've got we saw the revenue come out. They probably make $30 million. The Titans in revenue. They're the 11th best team for revenue. They've got billionaire owners. Oh, we can't pay $200,000 to pay them off the rest of the deal.
Yeah, but I mean,
is.
Well, $200,000 is still $200,000. Should they not just? And would that count on their? Are they going to bring anyone in now?
Maybe. There's options. They
but would they realistically bring in a head coach now,
or go with the interim? Go with the interim. Who have they got there? They got Brett White, who comes as interim coach for the rest of the year at the Titans.
I don't think they can legitimately make a move until that clause could be enacted. But I feel sorry for Des. I really do. I've got so much admiration for him, what he did for me as a player, as a person. Look, the relationship probably didn't end well there at the Dogs. I know there was a part of that, but I don't view the end as the overview. Like, I know Des can coach, but that roster, it is underperforming. And it had an emotional response where it had that comeback victory against the Knights. But, there's just a lot of... Look, the Titans, they're not a noisy club. They don't get as much Sydney media. They don't get as much NRL attention. But when you consider in and around State of Origin, all the news stories happening, the fact that this is being spoken about suggests that they're going to move in a different direction. I'm only making that call just based off what I'm feeling and how like the Titans are an easy brush that one under the carpet, nothing to see here. We're just going to continue on this trajectory. I think they might change course.
And people are saying he's going to retire now as well. Like he's renovating this house in Mollymook, and he's going to retire. And he's told his assistant coaches they should start looking for other jobs as well.
Well, look, that's not the Hasler I know. That's not the Hasler I know to be thinking about retirement. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's older though now, isn't he? He's older.
Yeah.
And
people change.
Yeah. Who knows?
How many special people change? How many lives are living strange?
Oasis coming soon, actually.
We
should get him on while they're here.
I bought tickets for that. I'm going to miss it.
Are you over in Ashes tour?
Yeah.
I'm going. So I'm going to Oasis on the Friday.
Yeah, I got you the tickets.
You did,
remember?
yeah,
I sat in the queue and got them for you.
You did, mate. Thanks so much for that.
No worries, mate. My pleasure.
That can be my birthday present.
No, I think you've already transferred me the money. No, that's a bit. Part of me did think about flying back just for that concert.
Yeah,
but I just can't do it. It's not. I'm there on.
What dates are you over there in England?
I can't remember.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
we don't need to go through your travel plans right here, right
now.
No,
we don't. But maybe we should do like a travel vlog.
Yeah. Jimmy in England.
Yeah. Well, I'm going a few places. Going to on a touring party with Rugby League Experience tours.
Yeah. Where can you get your tickets? Did you want to plug that?
It's sold out.
Oh, it's sold out. Okay, well done, mate.
Please,
well done.
Please,
well done.
Come on.
What did you get paid for that? Was that a good earn for you going on that tour?
No, just going for the love.
Just going for
free
love.
trip to England, free trip home.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, fair.
Flights and a com sorted.
Yeah, happy days.
You definitely got paid as well, but that's all right. Story for another day.
It is. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next week, or we'll catch you later in the week with Jam and Cheese.